Hi everyone, and welcome to the Efficiency Engineers podcast, where we ask the question, is there a better way? My name is Frederik Stallaert, and in this podcast I interview leaders in insurance that challenge the industry's notorious reputation of being slow to change and inefficient. On the show today we have Jonas Danau. Jonas is a manager of innovation and robotics at Belfius Insurance, a product manager, or as Belfius Insurance is commonly known as Belins, one of the largest insurance carriers in Belgium. And Jonas is currently leading the collaboration between Belfius and Paperbox, a collaboration that started in 2021, making Belins the first Paperbox customer. Needless to say, they've had a strong impact on who we are today, where we are going, and the whole Paperbox product. As we all know, insurance is an industry that is overloaded with admin and paperwork. Considering that the industry is becoming complexer and the amount of admin work is only growing, I believe it will be key for insurance to innovate in the area of admin processes, how they are dealing with their email and paper backlogs. So they need to keep working on operational excellence so that they can be the right partner for their clients, brokers, and agents. Belfius has understood this really well and has been innovating with robotics, AI, and automation. They are one of the first to automate core email and document processes with AI. Now, considering Jonas' focus on robotics and automation, he is the perfect guest for this podcast, and I'm excited to learn more about his ideas. So Jonas, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Fine. I'm doing well. How are you doing, Frederick?
I'm doing fine. This is the first time I'm getting this question and response. I'm doing well. We had a long weekend and it was a sunny one, so I'm well rested. And frankly, doing podcasts is one of the more fun projects for me to work on, because typically this is sort of a way where people take the time to go a bit deeper, and it's a good break between the rush of the usual day-to-day work.
No, I can imagine. I think it's also nice to have a chat with other like-minded people on automation. First of all, thanks for for the invitation and for the invite, and for having me on your podcast, of course.
It's our pleasure. It's my pleasure. So Jonas, tell me a little bit more about your current role. Like
Yeah.
there's automation and robotics. How does that work, and how does your job look like today?
Of course. Like you mentioned in the beginning, or in the introduction, today I work as a product owner. Which means I'm responsible for the governance and also for the awareness on the robotics domain. Before, I also focused a little bit more on the technical side. But from the beginning of 2023, we started as a transversal and a global RPA department for the entire Belfius group. So not only on insurance side, but also on Belfius side, because before there were like two separate entities. But we decided to join forces because, as you know, it always means synergies, economies of scale, and also other benefits by joining forces. And in this new structure, I took the role of product owner, more focusing, like I said, on the awareness, which is very important because you have to educate people on what are the capabilities of robotics, things like that. Also the management level, of course. And my colleague is more focusing on a technological or the technical part, like more the infrastructural part, things like that. Because in my opinion, this is really a very good structure and synergy between the two sides of robotics. Because without knowledge on the technology and on the capabilities, it's very difficult to get some new ideas in. So new projects in, and this is also why, yeah, we are really convinced that somebody should fully or like the majority of his time also focus on this awareness part and on also educating people, because otherwise, yeah, it will have a big impact on the future pipeline, of course.
I love the focus on awareness. If I've learned anything from going to insurance innovation conferences, is that there are a lot of really good ideas. There are many impressive insurtechs out there, but generally adoption in the industry is still pretty low. And it's not necessarily due to the technology. It's rather the yeah sort of how people, technology, and processes come together, and if is the awareness already there? Is it already in place? So I'm curious to maybe to go a bit deeper, because of course conceptually I understand you need to educate people, you need to create awareness, but how does that work? Like, what do you run different initiatives? Like I've heard in the past a UK underwriter talk about like data literacy, which is really starting at the foundation, like making sure people understand if they put anything into a spreadsheet or their insurance management system, the data quality is important. We're beyond the time where you can just put in any rubbish and without consequence. All of that
Hmm.
data is now being consumed. So that was a data literacy project, and I thought that was super interesting. But perhaps you also have some experience there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And what we try to do is, first of all, it's like the first step in the awareness process is also just give like information sessions, brainstorm sessions, explaining, okay, what are the capabilities of robotics and also other automation technologies, because not only robotics can be used to automate processes, because then you really bring the technology to the people, because otherwise, yeah, okay, everybody understands, okay, we are going to automate processes. You can use artificial intelligence, but if you don't, yeah, give like examples of specific use cases that people recognize and that people can also use to think of other projects, then it's very difficult for them also to come up with new ideas. So the first thing that we really focus on is giving these information sessions and these brainstorm sessions. But another thing that we also introduced is what we call the RPA, or let's say the automation community, is really also like a small group of business owners, or SPOCs as we call them, that are already like more engaged than other people in the organization and have a real interest in automation. So we gather them around, like once a month we have a small meeting where we educate them on the new evolutions in the market, so that they also are aware, okay, what is possible, are there any new things that maybe can be used also in the organization. But because we are really convinced that we have to use these POCs as a first line contact for the people in the business to get some new ideas going, because yeah, yeah we can't have contact with all of them on a very frequently basis. But if we can use these or join forces also with these box, then it's much easier to also be in contact on a frequently basis with everybody in the organization that might have an idea.
I assume sometimes you might be experiencing some resistance as well, if you introduce new tools, new solutions, because frankly, typically it means that their way of working is significantly impacted, and not everyone is as keen for change. If you do, like how do you typically deal with that kind of resistance?
Yeah, I think I'm also happy that you asked this question, because we often face this challenge that people first there's always resistance towards change. But if we also talk about automation, then we are going to take away tasks and activities from the people, and the first reaction of people is always, yeah, but you're going to take away my job, and what do I have to do if you take away everything that I'm doing right now? And then my first reaction is, it's not the idea to take away your jobs, is just to support you and to make sure that all these repetitive and redundant tasks and all this administration that you also mentioned in the beginning in the introduction, that we can take away this to liberate more time for everybody, so that they can focus on the tasks they prefer the most and where they get the most motivation, the most engagement, the most energy from, rather than just typing in data into different kind of systems. Because I'm convinced there you can't really see the direct impact on the customer. And if you can focus on more like these added value tasks, then you will see the direct impact, and you will also feel more engaged. And you will also see, yeah, what your job will have an effect on the end customer as well.
So what are you observing if you So we've been working on this project for a while. What are some of the things that you've been observing when we get to, for example, automate manual data input or more mundane, repetitive tasks, so that there's more time for added value tasks? Like, what does that mean for Belfius Insurance in terms of how people are now working differently? Like, how has their day to day changed? Does that mean they take up a different set of tasks? Do you get any particular feedback from them? Um,
No, we often ask feedback from the business when we introduced, when we developed a new automation technology or a new project. Then we also ask some feedback from the business. Okay, what is now your feeling about it? Do you see any difference within the organization or within your specific department? And we often get the feedback that people that are very happy because in the past they had to spend a lot of time on working on these tasks. As we know, there is always a lot of work to do. There's always a backlog. People are waiting, customers are waiting for feedback. So we also see that the pressure is really lowering on all these people because yeah, one option could be to decrease the backlog is to hire more people, but we also know getting or higher qualitative people in the labor market is very difficult today because yeah, there's a low availability. So the other option we have is to just liberate time at the people so that they can spend their time on these added value tasks. And offering the opportunity to automate processes also, yeah, gives the option to the people to focus their effort on these tasks where in the past they never had the chance to focus on.
yeah, that makes sense. Was this the initial reason to look into technologies like AI and robotics? Um, because if so, from what I'm seeing in the market, Balance has been one of the yeah first adopters of intelligent document processing for insurance processes like indexation or maybe data extraction from PDFs. And I expect many more insurance carriers to be moving in that direction if they're not already. So I'm wondering why, like, what happened so that Balance decided to really move fast in that direction and be an early adopter, whereas typically in the insurance space you see maybe a bit more of a risk averse composure towards new technologies because of different reasons like mindset and also because yeah because maybe inherently insurance is a bit more risk averse. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be. But I think, in my perspective, I think the main objective of Belfius Insurance and also from the Belfius Group was always, like many other companies, of course, to focus on the customer and to increase the service towards our customers. Also, in the end, also increase the customer satisfaction rate. And I think one of the options, like I explained, hire more people on the labor market is very difficult today. And because Belfius has always been rather tech savvy, interested in new technologies, also interested in the use of these new features, made that we started with this project already some years ago. And we also today we see the benefit of using these technologies. We are capable of serving our customers even better than before. We are also capable of liberating this time and doing like more work with the same number of people, which is important because yeah, there is just a low availability of qualified people on the labor market today. So, and I think yeah, this it's really working out well for Belfius, also because they are an early adopter and they took the chance maybe, and also maybe the risk of experimenting with these new technologies. But from my perspective, I think it also generates a lot of benefits for the entire company as well.
Yeah. What do you think might hold another insurer back from going in the same direction? Like what might be some of the reasons why others are a bit slower to catch up on automating core processes using more advanced technologies?
Um, I maybe think the knowledge of the possibilities. I think because I'm not sure that every insurer really wants to invest time on exploring these new technologies because yeah, we have to be honest. in the first phase, you have to spend some time getting to know this technology. You have to see a lot of suppliers. You have to see, okay, what are the differences between these suppliers? What is available in the market? You also have to do some proof of concept to see, okay, is this really working? So some budgets have to be provided for for really experimenting with this new technology. So maybe not every insurer company wants to spend this budget, and maybe also for the smaller ones, maybe they have to focus on other main or core priorities, and maybe they are not willing to spend budgets if they don't know what the return could be for them. But my advice to them is really just try it out, because it has been there for a couple of years, specifically robotics process automation, but even in the AI domain, a lot of evolutions are happening today. And from my first view, there are a lot of benefits out there to really investigate and to really get to know.
Yeah,
So just
absolutely.
try that, and don't be don't hesitate. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I might be a bit biased, obviously, because I'm on the
Yeah,
vendor side,
of
but
course, of course.
I'm convinced we're not gonna go back to a world with less data and less AI and automation and stuff like that. So it's sort of, yeah, it's starting to really get time. But of course, there's many possible things you could be investing in, and there I think it's key to be working with a good mix of experts, including, for example, enterprise architects who know the market of the solutions well, but also know the internal business strategy and the IT strategy, so that you can, like our most successful customers are the ones who have sort of an overall picture of different building blocks they're putting together, where Paperbox might be one, but there might be others. And then you prioritize between the projects using a combination of return, but then also risk, available budgets, available stakeholders. If you look at the project now, while it's ongoing, you mentioned like the return of such a project before, but you also mentioned there's a big human aspect to it. Like what to you are the most important aspects to evaluate the success of the project? How is it looked upon today at
Yeah.
Belfius?
Yeah. I think in the past, the focus was really more like on the savings in terms of FTE, also for other projects. One of the first criteria is, okay, what is the cost reduction, or what is the reduction in terms of workforce, because then we can have some efficiencies or some economies of scale. But the message that I really stress often, and specifically in the past few months and years, is really not only look to the reduction in terms of FTE, but more look at, okay, what is the impact on the employee satisfaction? And if you want to look at it in terms of savings, then rather, okay, we are going to save time at our current workforce, but we have to not cut this time, but we have to reinvest this time just to focus even more on our end customer. Because maybe in the past there was not time enough to really have like uh, a personal service towards our customers, to ask or to respond to all the questions we had, because there's always limited time and a lot of work to do. But if we liberate this time, we can really spend this time yeah, increasing the service toward our customers. And the employee satisfaction for me is really important, because we all know people today. There are a lot of people with burnouts, a lot of people that are not that motivated from time to time. By just liberating this time, you can offer people, the time and the focus that they need to spend on these type of tasks. Sorry, that they really get energy off,
Mm-hmm.
and they can also be like more creative, because if you also have like some spare time, you can also think about maybe things you never had time for, and then this also generates some creativity, and also probably generate some good and new initiatives.
Yeah, I can imagine also for an employee, it's a way of feeling valued if you're offered new tools to be able to do your job more efficiently. Like if that's a company-wide effort, then it's a strong signal towards you as a person in that job, I think. next to freeing up time and maybe reducing the pressure and stuff like that. At least that's also some of the feedback we've been getting, and one of the reasons why we've been making sure that whatever we are building, it really looks and feels very, very nice and easy to use. Like the focus is to have the least amount of friction to get a job done. Like if you can do something with less clicks or with less effort, and it almost feels like, yeah, shopping on the modern e-commerce websites. That's sort of the experience we're looking for, which is something that is, yeah, not always as frequently, not always as common in big enterprise contexts where you're sitting on a lot of legacy technology and solutions as well, which obviously makes sense because insurance is an industry that is probably one of the oldest industries.
Yeah, definitely.
But still, there's a lot of change coming, I think, and people also sort of, yeah, they know what is possible from a tech point of view, so they might request this as well in their jobs.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And also to focus a bit on the point that you say, the motivation, I think also like creating awareness involving every level of the organization and explaining this kind of technologies is also giving their a little bit like appreciation and maybe also some value for them, because otherwise they just have to perform their tasks, data entry, whatever repetitive tasks there are. But if you can also involve them, educate them on the possibilities, everybody can come up with a good idea. So no matter what level you are in the organization, I think it's very good to also sit together with people that are doing processes on a day-to-day basis. Sorry, because then they can also come up with new ideas, and they will feel appreciated. They will have some new energy, maybe to come up with even more ideas in the future. And this is really something that can benefit everybody.
Yeah. So imagine someone's job is changing because that repetitive stuff is becoming more automated, or they're supported to get more done in less time, so that they have more time for new ideas, or for example to spend directly on customer or partner services, or other tasks. Have you what I always find difficult is to grasp, like, how would you measure that in terms of impact to the company? Like, from a conceptual point of view, it's logical. Like, if we can reduce the amount of time they're spending in admin, they can do other added value tasks. But then eventually, in theory, you want to be measuring, like, what are the added value tasks, and how much added value are we generating then with this initiative? Is that something you've worked on already, or how? Yeah, maybe from my perspective, more as an outsider, how should I look at that?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and this is definitely something that we also need to explore a little bit further, because you always have like the generic metrics. Okay, what is the saving in terms of workload, things like that. But like I said, the engagement, the increase in employee satisfaction is also a very important parameter. But today we are asking for feedback, but it's not that we are always like sending surveys, things like that. Really like measuring objectively, okay, what is now the impact of this automation? Also, not okay if you automate end-to-end processes today, not that much. We are already like looking, okay, what is now the increase maybe, or the improvement in the total end-to-end process by automating everything, and what is the impact also on the end customer. Yeah, it's not always that easy to measure it directly. Okay, we know, okay, maybe the throughput time decreased from X minutes to X minutes, then you have like an objective measurement. But okay, what was the effect then, sorry, or the impact then on the end customer? That's, yeah, something that is not always that easy to measure, but definitely something that we should investigate more in the future, to be able to also objectivize, sorry, the impact that you are creating,
Yeah,
of course.
I think that would be incredibly cool, because then also for us, then we can even more step away from the cost reduction side of things, which is, I mean, it's a good starting point for a discussion, but it's not, you don't want to spend too much time on cost reduction if you really understand what the upside can be, and the value of new ideas or people doing approaching their job differently because they have more time. But I guess it is inherently difficult to measure.
Yeah.
Have you seen any difference in adoption of AI and RPA between the different business domains? For example, between live and non-live, or claims department and customer service? And is there a particular reason for those differences that is maybe inherent to the business?
Yeah. From my perspective, I don't see a lot of difference between the specific domains. Okay, every domain has its own specific, specific things and specific characteristics, but it more depends on the like the willingness of the management from specific domains, and also their eagerness to also spend some time and so invest some time in using these new technologies. So in my perspective, it's more like human linked, management linked, rather than a specific domain that is easier to automate than other ones. I think in every domain, going from the operational departments to legal to HR, in every domain there are opportunities to automate processes. So it's more depends on the willingness and the eagerness to invest some time on it, rather than that it's domain specific. In my personal perspective, of course.
Yeah, makes sense. It does create an additional challenge. And this is something I've heard also from other people in the insurance industry. Sometimes transformation projects are bigger in let's say in timeline than people fitting to a certain role. Like you could have, for example, somebody in the leadership of a certain business domain, but they uh, maybe they're not incentivized to take the risk or spend their budgets on a project that goes beyond their tenure. Does that make sense? This I'm trying to better understand how to deal with those kind of challenges. If you're too dependent on a single person, there might be an opportunity lost for the organization as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah, but that's a good point, and I'm also really convinced that we should also maybe, I don't know, put in a management contract or whatever, or give some specific objectives to the management that we have to think about automation. Because, like I said before, redundant tasks, repetitive tasks, the majority of the people don't really like to perform them. So, in my perspective, we should really incentivize management and managers also to maybe every year you have to maybe automate X% of your processes using different kind of technologies, because then it's also measurable. There's also, like I said, an incentive to do some things, because now I really have the feeling that it more depends on the eagerness of the specific individual person, rather than it should be like a company owned objective, because it isn't a company owned objective. In fact, we really want to grow our business. We really want to have like more efficient processes, things like that. But it's not, in my perspective, not really translated maybe on the management layer, and it's not put like in the management contract in order to incentivize everybody to really achieve a specific amount of automation in their department.
Yeah, it's sort of, if the manager has been listening to a lot of GPT podcasts, chances are high they will initiate an automation project. But if
Definitely.
they haven't, they might not.
No, no, and there's also, yeah, it's what you said. There's no incentive, so why should they do? Okay, if they have an interest in doing it, okay, then it's nice for them. But otherwise, there is no incentive to really automate things, because if you can do the work with the people you have, okay, why should you then try to do even more with the same people, and also at the same time automate processes? So, no, in my opinion, it's really important.
Yeah, and of course also appreciating that there's a lot of firefighting and a lot of stuff happening all the time, which makes it difficult to always have the helicopter view of things, and maybe investing in problems that are not as day to day critical, for example.
No, no, and this is also why I think it should also start on the highest level of the hierarchy and the top management. It's important to also, make them aware of the capabilities and the possibilities, because in some cases, they know, okay, the technology exists in the market, but they also need to be convinced, okay, what is the added value for us as a company? Because, okay, everybody knows, okay, what is automation, what is the possibility of AI, of robotics, of also the Paperbox tool. But yeah, you really have to convince them first because they will then go to the lower levels, translate the objective towards them. But also don't forget, like, yeah, the operational level, because these are also the people that are doing these jobs on a daily basis. You also have to convince them to come up with ideas, because otherwise they will maybe try to protect their job because they don't know. It's not that we are going to cut their jobs. It's more like we have the objective to liberate
Mm.
tasks. So I think it's a top-down approach, but also a bottom-up approach that you have to use to create this awareness and to make sure that your project will become successful.
And that's where you come in, right?
That's true. That's true. I try to focus on both sides, and this is also why I'm convinced that having somebody in the organization that is focusing on this governance part and like really engaging people, motivating people, explaining and educating people is really important. Because if you only have like somebody that's more focusing on the technical part, then you're definitely missing out something in the total story.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've mentioned it briefly, GPT podcasts, or in general, there is a sort of a transformational shift going on in data and AI. Maybe not necessarily from a technology point of view, because a lot of these things have been developing over the years, but more in terms of a general sense of awareness of what is possible. Like with ChatGPT, it speaks to the imagination, and many people suddenly got access to very strong technology. I'm wondering, in your from your perspective, like what is on the horizon for the insurance industry, and maybe specifically for Balance, considering these trends? Like, do you feel the ripple effects already, or is it sort of long term kind of, okay, we know change is going on, but let's stay focused on what we're already building and not overreact? Like between not overreacting and overreacting, where are you?
No, I think with the introduction of ChatGPT, I definitely things change. Even on like the operational level, everybody's talking about, okay, can't we solve this with using ChatGPT? But also there, I think it's also very important to explain, okay, what is this GPT model about? What are the capabilities? What can we do with it? But what is not possible? Because everybody thinks now, okay, everything can be automated. We can use ChatGPT or the GPT model for everything that we are doing right now. We can maybe even replace everybody that is doing a job today. But there we also are very careful, and we also explain to the people, okay, there are a lot of options that are now open and that were maybe not possible in the past. But you also have to be aware that not everything is going to or that not everybody is going to be replaced by this GPT model, and you also have to aware on the GDPR rules because yeah, you also have to protect the data that you're putting in these kinds of models. So it's not that we're just opening a browser window, we put everything in ChatGPT, and from now on everything can be done using this technology. Yeah, but a lot of people at first sight thought, yeah, but you can use ChatGPT for this problem. But then we also have to explain to them, okay, it offers a lot of options, but there are also a lot of downsides. And as even the founder is saying today, you have to be very careful because this technology is capable of doing a lot of stuff, but there are also some downsides and some risks and challenges linked to this technology. But definitely, a lot of good ideas are popping up. We are also generating like a roadmap using these kind of technologies, these new technologies. Also, there I can see that Belfius is again a tech savvy or an early adopter in this kind of technologies. But we are very we have a healthy view of these technologies, and we also try to explain to everybody, be realistic and not be too over optimistic, because otherwise, it's not the reality that is.
No, no, exactly. To me, this whole, yeah, ChatGPT trend is probably a look into the future for many people, sort of what is possible. And then the biggest difference, because I believe in 1 year from now, ChatGPT and GPT will be replaced by other better models, by other providers, with a different sense of data security and so forth. So things will keep changing, but the biggest difference is that more people got triggered and start thinking about new ways of doing things. And I think that's exciting because, as you mentioned before, it's new ideas and innovation comes from within and from where you don't always expect it, and people taking initiative because they're convinced of a certain idea. And
Mm.
and
Yeah. But I think it's a good point because I was also thinking about this, and you mentioned it correctly. It triggered people to think more about automation, and because before, okay, when you said, "Yeah, I'm automating processes," then people are looking like, "Ah, yeah, okay, are you doing something fun too?" But now with the GPT and the Chat GPT, yeah, a lot of cool things are happening in the market because there are a lot of like really cool customer oriented initiatives that are possible right now, and this definitely generated a more like more awareness, and it triggered people to think more about automation, maybe even more than they did before.
yeah, my next question is about working with startups. So if you what I'm observing is that the insurance industry, it's not always easy for large insurance organizations to work with startups. Like it doesn't it's rarely successful. You have many super exciting insurtechs. I see them in conferences often, but then the next year, half of them aren't even there anymore. Or and then on the other side, like large insurance carriers, there might be a bit risk averse. They're maybe not as confident. So it works both ways. Like not every startup or insurtech has already proven to be able to deliver. That's one thing. But then on the other side, there's maybe not as much openness yet to work with startups. But Belfius and Belfius Insurance specifically has done it differently with this project because there's always an option to work with more established software providers. But there was a decision to work with a startup, or more of a, let's say, yeah, not as big as of an organization. What has been your experience with this? Like,
Yeah. I think the first reason why the Belfius has chosen to work with a startup was really, I think, for the purpose of flexibility. Bigger companies, they have like more governance, more people involved. It always takes a lot of time to move forward, and I think working with a startup can also have this benefit of flexibility because it's like a small organization. You sit together, you can just like explain a little bit of ideas, do some knowledge sharing, and then in most cases you can start off the project is a little bit maybe too optimistic, but it does not always take that much time to move forward in the process, let's say. So I think this is definitely an added value to work with a startup. And in my perspective, from my personal view, I also think it's very important that when you work within a startup, that you also involve them in the organization, and then I mean really involve them in the existing team. Because we are working quite some time with Paperbox. The previous project owner, yeah, he just had like ad hoc meetings with Paperbox, explaining a little bit. Okay, this is a business need. Are you capable of doing this? Okay, then Paperbox was checking, is this feasible? But when I took over the project, then I really felt this was not the best way of working together. And then I said, okay, no, we have to, yeah, really incorporate somebody of Paperbox, at least one or two people of Paperbox. They have to meet the business. They have to be there when there are meetings, because then it's easier to get to know the business, and also the business needs. Because otherwise, yeah, it's always filtered by the project lead or the project manager, and it's not always the same. And in my opinion, this definitely, yeah, yeah, how can I say this? This definitely led to a significant growth in the progress, or yeah, it led to a big progress in the project, and we were really able to generate much better results, and to also develop way more initiatives than we did before. So if there is one lesson that I learned, is really engage the people of the startup in your specific team, because then, yeah, it's way easier to work together and to get some great results.
Exactly. This is for us. It was very clear. This meant a much deeper understanding of your business, which means we can better translate this into how to shape the product. What I mentioned in the introduction, because of this deep and tight relationship, um, we were able to deliver a product that is today creating impact. And this only works if you're close enough, if you're really committed to working together, and not just, I mean, drop off, like we typically say, like throw the software over the fence. It doesn't work. It
Yeah, yeah,
it,
but
it could work if you,
in the beginning it was a little bit like
yeah.
that.
Um, this is also the difference between automation software in core processes and, for example, more off the shelf tools like a CRM system or other maybe more mature technologies that are maybe not always using AI, because as soon as you're using machine learning models and data, and the data is changing, or the models might be behaving differently, or you're working with different processes and different people in those processes, it's, yeah, there's a lot more added complexity, and then you need to pay attention to make it work.
Hmm. No, no, definitely. This is why I also say, okay, we really have to create like what I call a dedicated team, and we're in it together, and then you can move forward quickly. So, because without having a dedicated team, it's very difficult to get some good results.
Yeah, completely agreed. Jonas, we're already a bit over time, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the podcast and having this chat with you. I learned a couple of things, specifically on like how you do the governance, the awareness, and where you put the focus as a larger insurance carrier with these sort of projects. And I'm, yeah, super excited, obviously, with our collaboration and with more things to come, I believe.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It was really nice to chat on automation. And if you ever want to have a chat again in the near future, then you know where to find me.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.